Hello everyone in Hungary. I'm Abby's dad. We're in a hotel room here in New York, and Abby asked me to tell you guys about the economy here in the United States. So that's what I'm going to do. First of all, what's happened in the United States is, 200 and some odd years ago when the country started, it was very small government. We had broken away from England. We had come over here to exercise different kinds of freedom and start out really afresh on our own. So we had very small government. We had people that were entrepreneurs. They started their own business. We had everything was smaller. Even the tax system was different. Taxes were voluntary back then, but there was such a sense of country and wanting to make this work that people were more than willing to volunteer their money to help pay taxes and make the country run. What's happened over the years, over many years now, and has kind of culminated to what we have now, is that the government has gotten very big. Taxes are no longer voluntary; they're imposed, and they've gone higher, and they've been higher than they are now, but they're pretty high. You pay about probably for over in Europe they might not be so bad, but they're about 35% for the highest taxpayers. And then the taxes on corporations also have gone way up, so that people now, when you run a business, you're taking all the risk because you have to pay large taxes on what you make. But when you lose, you're not you can only write off a small amount per year. So the deck is kind of stacked in favor of the government, so people don't like that. Okay. Also, at the beginning, we were much more of an industrial type economy. We had steel mills. We made cars. We had Ford and GM, and we had no unions at the very beginning. Now, somewhere along the line, unfortunately, the unions came in to protect people with some of the benefits they were making, and the unions were probably a very good thing at the beginning. However, they got too big, and they required too much money to run them, and people were, just abusing them, really. And because of the unions, our car makers and various people became less competitive with places like China and Japan and people overseas who would work for less money per hour to make their products, which is one of the reasons why really the Japanese cars, for instance, and the Japanese a lot of things, began to beat us pretty good, especially in the arena of automobiles. Now, because of this, our economy began to suffer, and we began to we've kind of evolved into what we would call now a service economy, where we're not producing as many things as we did in the past, but we're providing various kinds of services, and we get paid for them. Now, I trade bonds for a living. I trade municipal bonds for a living, and bonds are monies that municipalities. They float bond issues to pay for schools and roads and things like that. So what's happened in the workplace that I work in and with government is we've taken on larger amounts of debt over the years. We used to do this on what we call very low leverage at the beginning. Now we have very high leverage. There's a lot of debt floating around in our country and really in the whole world, and that's what I work with to make a living. I trade the bonds that municipalities issue. I trade them in a secondary market, and that's kind of my job. Now, also in the way of our economy, another system that's been abused and has hurt us. Something similar to the unions. They started out good, but then it's turned into something bad, and that would be our welfare system. We wanted to put aside some money to help people who were poor and maybe legitimately couldn't work and things like that. And so we had a thing we called welfare, which started probably back around 1940. But over the years now, over these 70 years, people have found ways to work the system, to abuse it, to collect money from the government without working and play it that way. And that's been a big drain, again, on, it's a big drain on our economy because people are paying taxes the monies are going to people who are not really productive. They're willing to take the money and not really work, just take money from government. And that's caused a problem also in our country. Now, what's happened with all this debt floating around? Right now, the United States government is 14 trillion US dollars in debt. And what they keep doing is, instead of cutting their spending, like most people would do, like you or I would do, if I didn't have enough income or I was having a problem, I would cut my spending to meet, so that my revenues and expenses would be in balance. What we do instead of cutting our spending here is that we issue more government bonds, and people all over the world buy them. And because of that, our dollar has just been getting worse. It's becoming less and less and less valuable, because it's like anything else. If there's more of it around, it becomes less value. And U.S. dollars are floating all around the world in large amounts, and people own them in treasury bonds in various ways, and it has really hurt the value of our dollar. In 1971, we went off the gold standard. I feel that was also bad, because what the gold standard did, it kept us accountable. We had to have money in gold backing all of our outstanding currencies. So we couldn't go crazy, because we had to say, okay, if I have this many dollars outstanding, I have to have gold backing it. And it's a built-in accountability instrument. That was pulled, and ever since 1971, when we were pulled off the gold standard, we have we've printed money that's really only backed by our ability to tax or make revenues or whatever to back these dollars. And now we're getting to a point here where we're coming to really almost a tipping point, where we just have too much debt and not enough ability to service that debt. Okay, so how does this affect us as we live here in the United States? In various ways. As the dollar becomes worth less, what eventually happens is inflation kind of kicks in. But we've seen this really all around the world with oil prices. At one point in 2008, they went all the way to $150 a barrel, and then it dropped down. Now it's back to about $95 a barrel. And of course, when we have to pay a lot for oil, that translates into gasoline. So it costs, a bigger portion of people's expenditures are for driving cars and airplanes and things like that. So that's one of the ways we're affected. Okay, so in my opinion, what is the solution to all this, and how can we get back in check? How can we get to a point where we don't fall the wrong way off the tipping point? Because large countries, history speaks to the Roman Empire and Greece and lots of places that were once world powers have fallen off the map. We feel, everyone feels that couldn't happen to the United States, but it can. And what we need to do is we need to reduce the size of government. We need to reduce spending, so that people can start businesses and they don't have to pay so much taxes that they're penalized for starting businesses. And because of that, we can have more people going to work in these businesses, which will grow the economy, which will help take us out of the predicament that we're in now. So that's kind of my that's a lot of stuff in a small amount of time, but that's kind of what's happening here economically in the United States. Abby wanted me to comment on what I thought maybe were good places to live around the world, or maybe not in the same situation that we are here in the United States. And there's a country really in Europe, which is a little bit north of you and a little bit west of you. What?
I'm running out of.
Okay. Which is Norway. Norway has a good economy. It has a small economy, but they have fishing, they have oil, and most of all, their government is prudent, so they're staying out of debt. That's one. Singapore is another very fiscally sound country in a different part of the world, but nonetheless very good. Australia, very good. They have good natural resources that they're selling to China and other places in Asia. They have a good one. But last but not least, because the people are so nice. Abby tells me a great place to live is Hungary. The end.